Qu'est-ce que c'est qu'un homme? Qu'est-ce que c'est qu'une femme? Qu'est-ce que c'est que la masculinité? Qu'est-ce que c'est que la féminité? Qu'est-ce que c'est que l'homosexualité? Qu'est-ce que c'est que l'hétérosexualité? Qu'est-ce que c'est que tout ce qui n'entrerait pas dans le cadre de ces alternatives? On est allé lire Judith Butler parce que c'est d'abord quelqu'un qui réfléchit sur l'identité et sur les normes. Et sur une politique des normes qui ne soit pas fondée sur une identité stable, qui ne soit pas fondée sur une identité éternelle, qui ne présuppose pas une identité. Ce que nous fournit l'œuvre de Judith Butler, c'est des instruments pour réfléchir à cette évidence perdue des normes.
I'm lesbian, gay. Yes, I'm lesbian, I'm gay, but do I subscribe to everything the lesbian and gay movement says? Do I always come out as a lesbian and gay person first before, say, I am a woman, or before I am a Jew, or before I am an American, or a citizen, or a philosopher? No. You know, it's not the only identity. So these are communities where one belongs and one does not belong. And it seems to me we travel. I travel. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, into a Jewish family, and my parents were very engaged in politics and debate. And I was never very good in school. I was what they call a problem child, a disciplinary problem. And I would speak back to the teachers, and I would not follow the rules. I would skip class. I did terrible things. And yet, I was apparently smart in some way, but I didn't understand myself as smart. I understood myself as strategic. You know, one had to get through, one had to find one's way in the school, in the synagogue. And I didn't really like authority. My mother was called into the principal's office, the principal who runs the school, when I was in 5th grade, I think, at probably the age of 11. And she was warned that I might become a criminal. And at that point, they told me that I couldn't go to the school anymore, to the Jewish education program anymore, unless I studied privately with the rabbi. So this was for me terrific because I loved the rabbi, and in fact, I skipped the class. My regular Hebrew class, in order to go into the sanctuary to listen to the rabbi speak. And the rabbi spoke about extraordinary things. His name was Daniel Silver, and he wrote a book on Moses. So when I was forced to have a tutorial with him, I was privately very happy. And he asked me what I wanted to study. And he was very suspicious of me because I was this problem child. And I told him I wanted to know why Spinoza was excommunicated from the synagogue. I wanted to know whether German idealist philosophy was linked to the rise of Nazism. And I wanted to understand existential theology. And I was 14 years old.
Now, okay, that's sort of my point of view. You could come back with another point of view, but that would be one way of answering the question. You would have to go into both texts and find the relevant passages. And that's your job, and that's something we're hoping you're able to do now by virtue of having passed through this course in the way that you have. If you want to say, I find myself moved by what Rousseau says, that's great. Then you have to say why. So I'm moved because, I'm persuaded, because look at the way this is laid out. Because when I read this is what happens, and this is what convinces me, and this is the figure through which it works, and that figure works in the following way. Then I'm moved too. And show me so I can be moved like you.
Sometimes I feel you're gonna rise up to it. Hey, you wanna hang out?
Happy No Pants Day!
I could be in space right now.
Hey, No Pants Day! Hey, Happy No Pants Day! Don't like you. Are you sure it's No Pants Day?
No,
It's an international holiday.
you need to leave right this minute because you're gonna be on television and you're gonna be in trouble, and I'm gonna tell your parents.
I mean, I'm old enough to be on television without pants on.
C'est la folie de Berkeley, n'est-ce pas? Son culotte, nouveau sens de son culotte, pas révolutionnaire.
You sure it's not revolutionary?
Je pense que non.
What's in aid of? Just itself.
Yes, I think so.
Bye, you guys.
Dance Day, everyone!
Sexuality is particularly interesting here because we might think that to be a certain gender is to have a certain sexuality, and that these two are linked in some way. But of course, we know that they are not linked. You can certainly be a woman and be heterosexual, bisexual, lesbian, or no sexuality at all. Oui, c'est possible. C'est finalement peut-être raisonnable. It is a problem for our gender. It makes us anxious about our gender. So, for instance, I have friends who say, I would rather die than wear a dress. Some of them are men, some of them are women. I would rather die than wear pants. I would rather die than wear pants. One says that one plays with gender. On joue la femme. On joue l'homme. I would say, yes, it's true, on joue, but it's not always a simple question of jouissance. It is also a question of jouissance. Very often, I love my pants, I love my shoes, I love my dress. C'est une jouissance très forte, très magnifique. But sometimes also it is an anxiety, an angoisse, a fear, une peur, a fear of loss, a loss of place, a loss of identity, right? So even when we have our identity, my mother's family owned movie theaters in the city of Cleveland. And like many Jews, they entered into a new industry that started up in the 20th century. I think I grew up with a generation of American Jews who understood that assimilation meant conforming to certain gender norms that were presented in the Hollywood movies. So my grandmother slowly but surely became Helen Hayes.
And my mother, slowly but surely, became kind of Joan Crawford. And my grandfather, I think maybe he was Clark Gable or Omar Sharif or something like this. So I grew up with these people who were, they were Jews, they belonged to the Jewish community, but they were also Americans, and they were both leading their community lives, but very much wanting entrance into American society. So I think that by the time I grew up, you know, in the late 60s and early 70s, looking around me, trying to make sense of gender, I saw these extremely exaggerated notions of what gender was. But I think that these were notions of Hollywood gender that came through Jewish assimilation. And maybe gender trouble is actually a theory that emerges from my effort to make sense of how my family embodied those Hollywood norms and how they also didn't. You know, they tried to embody them, and then there was some way in which they couldn't possibly. And maybe, you know, my conclusion was that anyone who strives to embody them also perhaps fails in some ways that are more interesting than their successes.
Ich glaube, das ist kein bloß Opfer. Das ist etwas anderes. In dieser Instanz würde ich sagen, es gibt so Furcht.
Furcht.
Ja, bestimmt Furcht.
Ja.
Aber sie aber sie lebt noch.
Ja.
Sie ist auch sehr lebendig.
Und sie kann handeln.
Ja, vielleicht. Aber und ich glaube, dass wir sehen hier sie denkt an etwas anderes. Immer noch. Und es gibt auch so eine Sinnlichkeit, Furcht vielleicht auch ein bisschen Hoffnung, Erwartung.
Das Licht ist ein bisschen hoffnungsvoll, ne?
Ja.
Kann sein.
Kann sein.
Ja.
Sie ist verletzbar, aber das bedeutet nicht, dass sie verletzt wird.
Ja.
Genau.
Ja.
Es gibt eine sehr wichtige Unterscheidung.
Ganz genau.
Und ich glaube, das ist sehr wichtig,
Absolut.
die Verletzbarkeit der Frauen darzustellen. Das ist wichtig für den Feminismus. Das ist nicht gegen die Feminismus. Das ist kein feministisches Problem. Das ist
Aber viele können es nur lesen als Opfer.
Warum?
Ja, das ist auch eine lange Geschichte. Im Feminismus hat das dieser Opferdiskurs.
Aber sie spielt ein bisschen mit diesem Stereotyp, glaube ich.
Ja.
Und das Licht ist auch unheimlich nett, finde ich.
Aber kannst du dich erinnern, als Gender Trouble ins Deutsche übersetzt wurde, bist du auch konfrontiert worden mit so einer Opferposition? Also von sogenannten Oldschool-Feministinnen, die doch immer wieder da hineingefallen sind in diesen Opferdiskurs.
Ja.
Oder? Hattest du den Eindruck?
Ja, ich hatte das Eindruck, aber damals hat einige Feministen gedacht, dass wir die Frauen immer als Opfer beschreiben müssen
Ja.
Oder auffassen müssen.
Ja.
Und ich habe betont immer Handlungsfähigkeit. Und das war vielleicht kontrovers. Aber die Schermen hier, ich glaube, das ist so eine Frage von Lust.
Lust,
Ja.
Lüsten.
Ja.
Lüste.
Ja.
Ja. Lust.
Das ist ein Foto von Lust. Das ist Und man könnte sagen, so in den Vereinigten Staaten, die McKinnon und anderes, würde ich sagen, das ist vielleicht eine Art von wie sagt man?
Pornografie.
Pornografie. Ja. Aber ich glaube, das ist keine Pornografie.
Aber es ist eben.
Man kann zugleich, ja, sie kann zugleich zerbrechlich und begehrensvoll sein.
Ja.
Das ist
begehrenswert.
Begehrenswert, ja?
Ja.
Und das bedeutet, dass wir so eine andere Rahmen, das ist nicht eine pornografische Vorstellung, nach meiner Meinung.